Welcome back to Automobilista 2 today for a video at the Silverstone circuit here in typically British weather. We're going to be driving the Brabham BT26. This is the Formula One Brabham car from 1968 and 1969, featured here in Automobilista as one of the two real-to-life cars, I guess, for their Formula Retro series. They have two divisions for their Formula Retro, one without wings and one with wings. And I like how the cars feel a bit more with the wings than they do without, and I'll get a little more into that throughout the video. So this version of the cars is the one I want to race, and the BT26, although it is one of the two real cars, it's actually, I think, one of my favorite, dare I say, my favorite car from the 1969 season, especially in the configuration we have it here. In 1968 and 69, when this car raced, it rarely looked the same race-to-race wing configuration. This was the era of maximum experimentation, changing the wing angles, changing how the wings were on the car. This car had both high wings and low wings, being the wings on stilts and everything. So what we have here looks to be the late 1969 version. Also could be the version that raced in the Australian, New Zealand, Tasman series, one or the other. But it's the later version of the car, and the version I actually really like the most. One of the coolest looking cars, of all time. Was quite successful as well. Was raced by Jack Brabham, of course, owning the team, being the proprietor, as well as Jochen Rindt for 1968, and Jackie Ickx and Piers Courage through 1969. And Jackie Ickx was the most successful in the car, winning the British Grand Prix as well as the Italian Grand Prix in this car. So a very successful car. I think they actually finished second in the Constructor Championship of 1969. So we're at Silverstone. We're on the old layout of Silverstone, one of the historic tracks featured in Automobilista 2. And we're driving one of the historic Brabhams. So we're going to be doing a 10-lap race. And so why don't we get started with this, and I'll talk more about my general thoughts of Automobilista. Alright, so sitting on the grid, getting a little bit damp, as per the usual in Britain, but flag is down, and away we go. Getting a little bit of a slow start off the line, being a little tentative on the throttle. Work our way towards turn one. I think the circuit, it's a little slick, but it's not totally wet, not a lot of spray or anything being kicked up from the cars in front. So we'll dance across the track itself. And now work our way through Maggots and Beckett's. Go down to third, down to second, and tiptoe it on the inside. We got another one of the Brabhams in front. I mentioned this is one of the two real cars as bollards go flying there. And we'll take the left onto Hangar Straight. Easy to run wide. Now throttle fully down up to fourth gear. And up to fifth gear, flat out. Cars in front, knocking down all these signs. It's one of the things I've noticed about the AI in Automobilista. They abuse the track limits slightly, and it makes for an interesting few laps while all the cones and things along the circuit get sorted. What a car flying in front, debris going everywhere. My God, I can't say I've seen anything like that yet. I'd be pulling this car straight into the pit lane if I was racing this for real. Wow, that was quite shocking. So still a lot for me to discover in Automobilista. I've done a few of these races at different circuits and have not seen a car go flying like that. It'll be interesting to see if there's anything left on the next lap by. We'll come and complete the first lap. We'll have to actually get my heart rate down a little from that. Down to third. I was mentioning before all that crazy stuff happened, this is one of those two real cars. There's four different cars for you to try out in this winged early or 60s F1 series, I guess it would be. There's this BT26, there's also the Lotus 49, but the winged version. So the famous Cosworth DFV car. And then there's a car which honestly looks like an eagle with a wing on it. And then one other one that I'm not sure what it's supposed to be, but keeping to the real stuff provides an interesting challenge, as the circuit itself not super wet here. I think the strength of Automobilista, a lot of oversteer there. Strength of Automobilista is the weather conditions. You can see this incident has been picked up. A little bit of debris. I see a wheel sitting on the inside of the circuit there. The weather conditions, definitely the best I've seen in any sim. The transitions, the way the water collects on the circuit. I know there's some mods and things for Assetto Corsa which do some effects like this, but it's native to Automobilista 2 and it's done very well. We're racing in, I guess what I'd describe, damp British conditions here. It's very convincing. Go down to third gear then. Got one of the fictionals in front of us, but I can see, I believe, the Lotus 49 in front of that one. In the intro, we'll try to sneak it up the inside, down to third gear. Taking a little bit of a weird line past a Honda clone. Whoa, getting tapped from him. Up through fourth gear, we'll sneak in the slipstream. See if we can maybe make the pass at the end of Hanger Straight. In the damp, try not to lock up the brakes, sticking around the outside, a little bit of oversteer on exit. Able to make that work though. Worried, not sure if the debris there will cut a tire, but would be worried about that for sure in real life. Little bits of carbon fiber on the track, not sure if the video will pick that up well. There now, head towards the end of another lap. Side by side through the final corner, nice sweeping bend. This is a little bit different of the version of a circuit, this circuit that's in like Grand Prix Legends, the 1970s version, but very similar to the layout and convincing enough to have some good fun in these cars. I love that Automobilista does have some of these older tracks and cars, of course. It's pretty much the content that I want to play, and it seems like it's not the focus for other folks that I see playing these sims. And honestly, I think maybe not the focus of Ryza Studios either. It seems the world these days is infatuated, the sim racing world at least is infatuated with GT3, and I agree that online racing GT3 cars are accessible enough and is widely known enough that you have some pretty good competitive races. It doesn't take a massive amount of skill for somebody to at least be competent in them. But I do wish some of this type of racing was more popular. So let's try to make our way up the inside of the Lotus, and able to do so. So I mentioned in the start of the video that I prefer the winged versions of these cars to the non-winged, and it gets to my main thing I'm experiencing with Automobilista 2, and that's the physics overall. The graphics here are amazing, the weather is amazing. The thing I'm having a tough time getting my head around are the physics. There seems to be some odd behavior. I'm not sure if they're bugs some of the time, or just generally how the steering and grip model is working. It's running a little wide here. Large stacked up group in front of me. Do some odd things to the car to get it to feel at least somewhat decent, and it doesn't feel like these cars like to slide much, which they were definitely doing in real life, even with the wings. The non-winged version of these are very tough to drive because anytime you get any slip into them, they tend to want to spin out. And it might be the setup that they're given, or it could just be my driving potentially, but I'd expect them to feel a little better. They felt absolutely amazing in Automobilista 1, so I'm not sure why. Oh, I know why the feeling is not the same. It's a completely new engine, but they're guessing it somewhat. I think Risa knows how these cars are supposed to work, how they're supposed to feel, but just does not come across super well. I think this is a very immersive sim, but it's not quite the level that some of the others are. This is quite the pack of cars. They usually get a little more strung out than this. Riding on the curb seems to be brightening up a little bit. Around the fast corner, we'll come up the outside, which becomes the inside. Try not to touch any tires. Create an accident like we saw in the opening lap. Up through fifth gear then. Down to third. I lose these cars at specific points. It's less on throttle and more in the braking zones. And it could be the setups. I've had to play around with the setups quite a bit, and I've found some odd bugs talking to some others in Discord and things. I've ended up having to change the steering ratio to be higher in order to make the car more responsive, which is simply plain backwards for how it should work in real life. And I don't know if that's a bug or maybe what it's actually adjusting is different than what you normally think of as a steering ratio, but I had a lot of problems with the last video I did in the car. It's just understeering generally, and increasing the steering ratio solved that. And it doesn't make any logical sense to the meaning of the word. Whoa, spinning out there in a T1. Hopefully the catch fencing collecting me a little bit, able to keep the car running. You can stall here. All over the circuit. Cars behind would be wondering, what the hell is he doing? Oh, just like that, the car feels quite weird. Not sure, I didn't really hit too much. We'll see if we can baby it around here. Just got a couple laps to go, I think. Just slightly misting this whole race. A car right on our tail. Come to the end of Hangar Straight, brake a little earlier. Not sure exactly what I've got under me now. Hit some of that fencing, which was common for the 1970s. They thought, the word catch fence, I think. A lot of folks these days don't know what that actually means, but what we have on the sides of the circuit are true catch fences. They would put these fences with posts not so hammered into the ground alongside the circuit, and the idea was the cars go careening off, they hit the fencing, and that catches them. Quite literally the word. Yeah, something's messed up in my right rear, so it's probably hitting the catch fencing that did that. But we'll baby it for a few more laps. Let's see if I can gain at least a little time back. So, I don't mean to be negative in this video. I don't want to say I'm not having fun. Clearly this is quite a bit of fun, but I feel like a lot of this fun is available elsewhere as well. If you like the older cars, it sounds like, I really haven't tried them, but it sounds like the newer cars for Automobilista 2 are quite well liked. Let's see if we can stick around the outside here. I know they just released the Nürburgring, which everyone loves. So it's got the content for that kind of racing, but it has some content for this type of racing, but it's missing some, and the lack of mod support is really hurting quite a bit there. The only mods I've really seen are for skins or new paint schemes, which would be nice. It'd be nicer to have maybe some cars that look a little more realistic to race against. As on throttle, this thing is a little messed up at this point. But having Automobilista 1 just had a lot of tracks and cars available that you could basically take the things you like about it and expand on those. And I've run into a few weird barriers in this sim where things like, making your own championship just isn't a feature, or choosing which opponents you want to race, you know, maybe to just have a race with some of the real cars is not something you can do, as far as I know, and please let me know if that's wrong, but it seems like there's just some of the basic stuff missing here. And so for me, doing some of these short races seems to be about the most I can get out of it at the moment. I hope that changes. I know they're working on a historic spa, which will be definitely interesting. I think if they can really pull off the graphical fidelity, it could be a fun circuit to lap around. Come to the end of Hanger Straight here. Car feels very strange now. I don't know, it feels more damaged than it maybe should be for what I hit. Maybe I'm just used to some of the other sims that, like Assetto Corsa, which seems like you can hit a fence at full speed and things are fine. We'll come, I think we'll get the white flag or get onto the last lap coming up here. Keep putting these newer, or in the newer sims, they keep putting these older cars, and I think there's an appreciation out there for this type of content, but I would just love to see a modern sim develop solely around classic racing, where they really focus in on having a nice depth of circuits, maybe simulate a specific series. I know Formula 1's probably a little out of reach, but you know, would IndyCar let some developer come through and develop a 1960s, you know, simulator for IndyCar? I can't imagine that is as hard to get licensing for as maybe Formula 1 or even sports cars. Not sure. I'm sure there's so much to it, and who knows what the audience is that would enjoy something like this. What I really want, Grand Prix Legends 2. I think I'd be a lot nicer on this if it was a full, you know, 67 F1 season. But we'll come to the last few corners here. Still all that debris from the lap 1 incident. I can't wait to watch that one back. Not sure if I'll be able to get around this car in front with my damage. Feels like it's in the left rear suspension. Try to get up the inside, up through 5th gear, go down to 4th for the final corner, able to make a pass, sliding in front, and coming across the line to finish the race. So overall, quite a bit of fun racing in the damp conditions at Silverstone. I think there's still a little bit more I want to do in this sim just to see how some of the different tracks are. I know some of the other historic tracks that I've not raced on so much, like Imola, for instance, are quite interesting to go race on. The graphics and everything are amazing in this sim, and so I hope to get more comfortable with it. But overall, just wanted to share some of my thoughts as I've now had a few weeks to set in and see what I think of Automobilista 2. So I appreciate everybody watching. There'll be more videos soon. I'll see you all again next time.